Welcome to New Hampshire Politics with John Burt. I'm John Burt. I want to thank you for joining us today, and our guest is John Babiarz, and he is running for governor in 2014, and he is with the New Hampshire Libertarian Party. And John, I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John.
You know, it was a real pleasure. I've been meaning to have you on in the past, and our schedules just never met up, and I'm really pleased that you came today.
I'm glad to be here in Goffstown. It's a beautiful facility and
Yes.
state-of-the-art technology just being unveiled today for this program.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I'm kind of the guinea pig with some new cameras, and it's working out very well. And yeah, no, they do a great job here, and you know, they been very, very good to me, and getting the message out as I see fit, and you know, as I want to push out there. And I think we align ourselves a lot. Now, you know, I am on the Republican side, and you're the Libertarian side, and you know, but really, it's pretty close to, you know, there's not a huge difference if a Republican wanted to be true to himself, as I call, you know, with the platform and et cetera. So, you know, that's, I guess what my first question is, as a longtime libertarian, can you just briefly define what is libertarianism and how our society can adopt some of its principles? Because
Sure.
that's real important.
Sure, John. Libertarianism is the belief of liberty,
Yeah.
that in order to have that liberty, we must have personal responsibility for our actions. And if we interchange with other people, we do it through non-aggression. We do it peacefully.
Yes.
And that's libertarianism in a nutshell.
Well, that's easy.
That is easy.
Yeah, so why don't we do it?
Well, because people make things more complicated than they have to be.
They
There's some
do.
people that don't want to play fair, and so they use different methods of law, guile, or whatever to enforce their, quote, wants and desires on other people
Yes, yeah,
without the respect given to other people's rights.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think you know, I definitely believe in that. You know, I feel what somebody wants to do, you know, as long as it doesn't cost me anything, they have the right to do it. You know, and that's the way they should.
That's the way it should be.
That's the way, yeah, yeah. And you're absolutely right. You know, I'm up in Concord now as a state representative, and I mean, they bring some of these bills forward, and I'm going, are you serious? And unfortunately, a few of them get through.
Unfortunately, I mean, I remember talking with some conservative friends back in the early century, part of the century in the 2000s. At the time, they were worried about gay marriage. I said, the answer is not gay marriage. The answer is get government out of marriage.
Yes, yeah.
But because government is involved in marriage to control people, remember, marriage was started as a way of controlling who can marry who. You couldn't have interracial marriage. You couldn't have this type of marriage. If the government was out of it, there would be no need for family courts to that. If you had a marriage issue, you would confer with your local community, with your pastor, with your rabbi, with your imam, whatever the case may be.
Yes, yeah.
There would be a more sense of community. Instead, when people get married, 3 entities are involved. Partner A, man, partner B, female, or today, male, whatever. But the third entity is the government. What happens with government is, and this is a crazy, in contract law, and in fact, gays back then could always develop a contract that in the event of death, this is a person responsible, whatever,
Yes.
clearly detailed and binding. But instead we have, you get a marriage license, you've entered into an open-ended contract because the government, through the legislation, could change the terms of that contract anytime during your marriage. Who would sign an open-ended contract? I mean, right now you go pay your $50 or whatever it is to get a marriage license. Turn around, they could say, well, if you're married in the year 2013, you have to go to the Candia District Court only on Wednesdays to have your hearings. And you could change the law in 2018 to say you could only go to the Manchester court to change your status of marriage.
Yes.
You see, that's an open-ended contract. That's very dangerous. That doesn't help the family. They could put you into family courts, which we know there's a problem. I don't care what other representatives.
No, there's a huge problem in the
Yes.
family courts.
Okay, so we need to address these issues. And the only way is, why get government involved? It just makes a whole mess.
Yeah.
There are times when there has to be a third-party arbitrator. But why a government with a monopoly on violence to enforce their will? that may not be beneficial to the children, to the partners of the marriage, or whatever.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see the government out of the marriage
But you
business.
see, that's the dynamics. My principle has always been the same. Why is government involved in this?
Yeah, yeah. No, I never looked at it really until the past, I would say 4 or 5, maybe 10 years about government and marriage, and I realized the harm that they do. And they do a lot of harm. That's the problem, is they really aren't there for the family. They should encourage everything they can to keep the family together. And they just make it too easy to
But you see, the root of all this is the income tax. Because without the deductions, without the benefits conferred by Congress
yeah,
for your exchange of slavery of yourself to your wages, it should be to you and distributed as you see fit. Instead, the government takes the first bite of it, and they make you jump. You want this deduction? You got to do this. If you want this deduction, you do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay? You want the marriage benefits, if you will? You got to do it this way. Well, when you take a man's fruits of his labor, you can make him jump. And to me, that's morally wrong and offensive.
it is. Well, I mean, we could talk 2 hours just on that. You could get me going so bad on that, with Obamacare and everything else. I mean, we could talk forever. Because that is, the government just,
It's principle.
yeah.
If you live your principle, and everybody, and the libertarian principle does not put a burden on you to support me. It never does.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the way I believe is, what you want to do in your own private life is none of my business as long as it don't cost me anything.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's libertarianism in a nutshell.
So I guess I do lean pretty heavy over there. Now, this is the next question. We've already started into it. Is what is your view of the proper role of government? I mean, where government is so huge now, John. We have to somehow find to bring it back. But what is the proper role?
It was once said, high taxes is the price we pay for uncivilized society. When we're not willing to help our neighbors directly,
Yes. Yeah.
when our neighbors can't thank us for our help, when we put this third-party entity in place in order to negate our responsibilities for caring for our own communities, that's where the government loves that, because they get the power out of it. There's those people in society that want to be left alone, most people, and then there's those that want to control other people.
Yeah.
And the best way to control other people is through money, right?
Yes.
Whether you're taking it and distributing it, because now those you distribute to are beholden to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas true charity, first of all, you'd be embarrassed to ask, unless you're really in the situation. But in the same token, people that are really hurting are given charity. Because they know the recipient, or they know, or even with tax deductions or not tax deductions, when I give to an organization, I know they'll utilize it fully for what I believe their mission is, as opposed to overhead or things like that.
Yes.
All right? But that's because it's my money and I can do it. When you put it in a legislative pot that's taken by force, who controls it? It's whoever has the biggest mouth and can get the most rent-a-mob to conquer to lobby their position.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. And you know what really is disheartening, the past couple years that I've been up there is when I see churches protest against the cuts that, we did back in 2011 and 12 year. And I'm just going, are you serious? So when churches want a handout from the government, that just isn't the role of a church, to ask the government for a handout.
What's wrong with the church with their teachings?
Exactly.
Isn't in most religions is charity to give to the poor, to help the poor?
Yes. Yeah.
And yet they're going to the government, a government that is nothing but organized force?
Yeah. And that's what they're doing right now.
And what kind of charity does the government give out? Well, we'll give you this only if you follow this rules, or even worse, for a church to go there to tell the government to give, when the government is basically saying, well, we'll give you this money to have a food to serve the poor, but you can't have any religion. So the church is asking for an entity that is basically going to do everything against its teachings. I don't understand this concept.
Yeah, I don't either on that one. It doesn't make any sense. Now, how would you encourage and support school choice in New Hampshire? I mean, education is extremely important to me, and we need school choice. How would you encourage and support that?
Well, several ways, and school choice is very important. I'm a person that like to look at the different options and make my choices. The current government-controlled school monopoly is not about choices. It is a monopoly. Oh, they'll say, no, you can go anywhere you want. But yet they extract a high value of money from the residents to support that school. We want educated people in society. But can you tell me why it costs almost $16,000?
Yeah.
All right? All right. Let's say there's special programs and things like that. But if we have school choice, wouldn't you want a child that is enthusiastic about engineering to go to a school that has engineering discipline so they're better prepared? One size does not fit all.
No.
If that was the case, then we could take the German model where the bureaucracy determines what your future is going to be. And they're going to tell you're destined for tech school or apprenticeship or whatever. Some people want a religious-based education. That's their business. Some people want an anti-religion-based. That's their business.
Yep.
All right? But right now, we don't have that. And now, this Common Core that they want to put in, Agenda 21, wait a minute. Government schools are to control whoever's the political leader of the government, and if they want to have anti-religious indoctrination in the school, well, it's a political thing. Why would anybody subject their children to that? It's like the government saying, well, you're going to eat this food. You don't have any choice, because they'll say food is a right. Education is so powerful, so important. To have a government bureaucracy make it is wrong.
Yeah.
Now, how to support that? My wife and I don't have any children, but we still pay the property tax for education. I think, to me, what would be a better improvement is if I could take that portion and designate it to a child to attend a special school. So if they want to attend an engineering school, I want to see that they go there, that they have the funds. So I would like to, quote, and the same token, right now, is the government just collects it and puts in a pot.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's better is the child thanks me for their education. I get no thank yous.
That's for sure.
All of a sudden,
yeah.
if I'm a scholarship and they listed that Mr. Babiarz paid portion of your scholarship, I would like to at least have a thank you note from the child, thank you for my education.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to make sure if I say this scholarship is good for any engineering school or this type of discipline, I'd be better off because I'm knowing someday there's going to be an engineer that will develop us the products that we need in the future. Instead, I can't guarantee you what's going to come out of school. If the kid really wants an engineering track or a medical track or whatever, there are people to back that up. Okay? We don't have that choice now. I think this concept of the school has to change in this day and age of internet. You now can get college courses. Homeschool kids, even at 14, 13, are enrolling in colleges via the internet.
Yes.
I look at the current school model today that these buildings that we have, these monolithic buildings, they're going to be education malls. That the best teachers will have the most students. And if the best teachers have the most students, they're going to get the most pay because they're going to be a draw. Imagine, if you will, a teacher that is so good in science or whatever that parents are clamoring at the doors to get in.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? That school is going to draw people to that teacher. And that's a draw, and that teacher's going to get the resources. But if you put them in a monolithic, forcing people that don't want to be there or that has maybe more artistic idea, they should be a more artistic school. The school that best meets the characteristics of the child, not a monolithic structure. And that's where we get true education, through true breakthroughs in education.
Yeah.
And that the teachers will be properly rewarded. That's not happening now.
No, it's not.
And I'm looking for that excitement, that teachers can really be themselves to express it. Today's school curriculum, it's not about education. It's about following the rules. Look at the terminology that they use. Lockdown, and then something's going on.
Yeah.
You're training them for a prison mentality. You're training them that government's the authority.
Yes.
That's not education. That is lockstep indoctrination. We need to change that. True education.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we need to get away from that.
And the only way you get that is choice, because if the school's doing something wrong, the parents can say, we're out of here. All of a sudden, the school administrators, look, their salary decreased because the amount of pupils there is decreasing. They're going to do something to bring the enrollment up. Capture them by a point of a gun because that's your only choice, because you will pay the property tax or else. You will go to school or we'll arrest you. That's not a good business model.
Yeah.
That's not friendly.
Yeah.
The only education you get out of there is, man, government's a meanie.
Well, that's the way it should come out, but they come out indoctrinated that, government is what we're supposed to be looking at.
Yet our country was founded on rugged individualism, self-determination.
Yes.
And that's being lost because it's now submit to government.
Yeah.
That's wrong, and I think the people of the Ron Paul revolution are getting it.
Yeah. No, we do. But the school is just such a huge bureaucracy. The unions in the administration. That's increased, I heard, 700% over the last 10 years. Or maybe it was 20, 15 years, somewhere in there. But it's a huge number.
It is a huge number.
And we don't need them. We got to bring it back down to the local level.
And the dynamics have to change, because the way we're going is not going to work. It's just slowing it down.
Yeah, I heard we're like 16th, 17th in the world.
Yet we spend close to number one.
Really? And we should be number one.
They tell us that in our school district, they tell us this. We need a new building because it's hampering our education. We need smaller classroom sizes. Tell me why the Swiss kicks our butts and they're in 300-year-old buildings.
Yeah. And how many kids in their class? Probably a bunch.
A bunch. But also, even in the Swedish socialist country, if you will, they have school choice. We don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And all this, they want to have, like you said, these lockdowns and stuff. I'll probably get in trouble for saying it, but I just say, the teachers that are willing, let them carry.
Yes.
We could fix that problem and put a big sign out on the front door. Hey, nutcase, you're going to have to, which teacher is? They're going to have to pick which one. And the problem will go away.
Yes. And again, they talk about that, but you read they had this problem 100 years ago.
Yes, they did.
Somebody with dynamite blew up a school. I forgot what
Yeah.
state that was, but it's in the history books. This is nothing new. There's always nutcases, and they'll find some method.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we could fix a lot of those problems. No. And here's another hot topic that's really been in the news a lot. Do you believe that the Northern Pass Electric Project is necessary for New Hampshire, and what role can or should the state play in terms of implementing our energy policies?
Northern Pass is not necessary for New Hampshire, but you have to go back a few years to understand why it's not necessary. New England is 6 states.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're part of a regional electric group. That includes Maryland. Okay. There's something, see, this is where government comes in and steps their big ugly nose into places they shouldn't even belong. So they decided that we wanted renewable, that we should have renewable. And each state in this region has pledged through legislation. It took a few years, but they finally put this thing together, and it's ugly little thing. But basically, we're part of a regional greenhouse gas initiative.
So Reggie.
Yeah. And each state has said, we're going to need 20% of our power from renewables. All right. So in order to satisfy their requirements, the power in state has to have 20% of the RECs, which is a credit based on each 5,000 watt unit, to come from renewables. Okay. So Connecticut decides we're going to buy power. So they make agreements with power companies up here that's putting in the windmills. All those windmills, none of that power goes to New Hampshire.
Really?
The REC credits for that is all going to Connecticut and Massachusetts.
Oh.
The amount of power Northern Pass is to bring down that line is 1,200 megawatts. Seabrook, by itself, generates all the power that the state of New Hampshire needs, all of it. The only problem with Seabrook is every 18 months it has to go down for a 3-week refueling cycle. But Seabrook alone could do all of New Hampshire.
Wow.
Okay? So the power it would transmit on Northern Pass, chewing up all that land for a cost of $1.2 billion, put another new modern reactor would cost less and have less environmental impact because Seabrook is already designated as an atomic plant. It's already had two facilities, but they tore one down that was 95% complete.
Really? It was that close?
That close. They can just rebuild it, and instead of using the old type of reactors, use newer modular reactors, which are smaller, more efficient, and they're the new pebble bed modular reactor, which China's going to build about 50 in the next 20 years, would fit inside this studio.
Really?
And instead of using cooling towers, it would use helium, and the reactor itself is the size of a refrigerator.
Ah. So, so the state of the art in nuclear energy is just...
But politically, technically we could do everything. Politically, we could do nothing. We're so seized by the fear of technology. When you start looking at technology and seeing what we're doing, because we're trying to satisfy these RECs, even New Hampshire Electric Co-op, I put up a big solar array. That's 8,000 watts. Well, when New Hampshire Electric Co-op found out, they're salivating because they could get a REC, make their 20% goal by 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. All right. Sure. I signed it off to them. Yeah. But they got to pay me for the power, which is great. All right. I have a big enough facility. Most people they don't, so they combine them together and they get a short end of the stick because they don't get the benefit to sell the power. They just accumulate up because the power company has this formula that because of our regulatory commission.
Yes.
Right. But bottom line is I'm selling power. But we have wood chips here. We have hydro here. Of course, I know back 10, 15 years ago, they destroyed a couple hydro dams because they wanted the fish to migrate. That's fine. Okay. But now I guess the priorities is wind. But the wind blows up mountains. You have to do a lot of blasting, setting up those things. It's mechanical. Mechanical is the problem. I'm an engineer. I've done electronics. I've designed computer chips. But anytime we've gone to mechanical, there's always a factor of friction wear. Unless you're running on superconductivity, supercooled, there is friction. Windmills have friction. They have a mechanical ability to break down. And, there's problems with windmills. Okay, but the bottom line is we could have all our other generation. We use wood chips. I think burning oil for thermal heat is crazy, but that's myself.
Yeah.
But we don't need Northern Pass. And I think the government role is to make sure that people are held accountable for bad action, protecting property rights so that any generation facility doesn't pollute, doesn't transgress on our neighbor's property. But the bottom line is the government should say, this REC thing is nothing but we're doing things for political purposes and not what's best for society. And that, to me, is wrong.
Yeah. But then on Seabrook too, so we could build that.
Sure, we go through the licensing problem. Of course, the federal government's involved, and it takes years for that. But the bottom line is the impact to New Hampshire landscape is so minimum. And besides, all the power is going to Massachusetts. You know that.
Oh yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. They say we won't get 1 ounce of it.
Yeah. So we have some jobs at the transmission tower. Yeah. Whoopie-doo.
Yeah.
Okay, those are not long-term jobs. And again, what we're giving up is the beauty landscape of New Hampshire. When the blasting occurs, water tables will be changed, altered, whatever which way, whether it's blasting for the towers for the windmill or blasting for the right-of-way for the transmission. Also, another thing, when I was, it's one thing, I have a vast experience, so I understand this. The price Quebec Hydro charges is pegged to the price of oil.
Oh, really?
You didn't know that?
No.
Back in the 90s, I was on New Hampshire Electric Co-op's advisory board that they had, and they told us how the power from the co-op gets power from Quebec Hydro through the grid, and that the price, because we were wondering, oh, why not hydro? It's cheap. Well, the price is pegged to oil. They have a fixed cost. They have cheap power up there because it's hydro. They have all that land all flooded, ready to give us power.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so, but the cost to us is based on the price of oil. So if price of oil goes up, Quebec Hydro is going to charge us more.
Well, that's quite a racket.
It is. Otherwise, hydro would beat out all this oil, natural gas-fired stuff because of the cost of the pipeline and things like that.
But that's fair market.
Well, there's governments involved. Let's take off all the subsidies and let the market really determine. The
Yes.
market has determined nuclear's too expensive because of the government regulatory environment. But if they had to buy insurance like everybody else does for their plant in accidents, then we would see a whole different game because they would get the most safest plant possible to get lower insurance premiums.
Yes.
But government involvement is causing us to destroy beautiful New Hampshire scenery for power that we're not going to use.
Yeah.
So we pay the burden in many ways around, and I think it's wrong.
Yes. Yeah. No, I'm a huge, supporter of nuclear. In wind, I am just not a fan of it. It costs us too much money. The taxpayers are basically putting them up. And when these wind towers are abandoned, which they will be over, as you say, they're going to wear out, who's going to pay for them to remove them? The taxpayers probably. That's what I'm guessing.
Or we leave them up there, but then eventually they decay and fall. And
That's it.
A windmill that catches on fire is not a pretty sight. I'm a fire chief, and let me tell you something. We can't fight them. We just stand back until they finish disintegrating, and then we'll put out the forest fire.
Yeah. So none of you guys will climb the tower, the 400-foot tower, or with a garden hose?
No, we're not going to do that. We don't even have most of New Hampshire's rural, so we only have one-stage fire pumps. I mean, Manchester may have two-stage fire pumps, but we only have one stage typically because it's cheaper. And to do a high structure like that, you need a two-stage fire pump, and it's too expensive in most rural communities.
But could a two-stage even reach that 400 feet? I mean, that's way up there.
That would be a powerful pump, but I would have to see how they do it in New York City. But normally they have the water on top, but there's no room on the windmill to have a water storage on top.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah. No, they're just, to me, they're just not worth the investment.
It's not worth it.
No, not when we have so many others. Given the amount of money it takes to mount an effective race for higher office in the state, why not work with a Liberty caucus in an established party?
Some members of my party have gone that route.
They have, yeah.
They have, and good for them.
Yeah.
However, you have to remember how the Libertarian Party started. It broke off in '72 of the Republican Party because Nixon went against, implemented wage and price controls, which was against Republican principles.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, for all the Republicans were, they were civil rights people. They're the ones that implemented the civil rights program. It was the Democrats that tried stopping the civil rights movement.
Yep.
And then LBJ had the thought of the war on poverty, which I guess we lost. It didn't change anything and made it worse. That's the problem with government money. You don't get the desired effect. But what happens is it's the libertarians that have kept the principle, and every time the Republicans try to stray more, they always have to remember the Libertarian Party starts getting stronger and stronger the more they stray.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so and now the full effect is in the Republican Party now for the very soul of the Republican Party. Is it going to go to the side of libertarianism, or is it going to go down that route of corporatism, fascism, which both the Democrats and Republican corporate entities have embraced?
Yes, yeah.
If they were going to be true to the people, they need to pull into the libertarian side. If not, then you can understand why people are upset with both major parties. The grassroots go and elect them, and they vote contrary to our Constitution, contrary to our issues. None of our congressional delegate is without sin up there, whether it's the Democratic side or the Republican side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Yep.
Like he who has no sin cast the first stone. I have a stone. I'm ready to cast.
Yeah. No, that is good. Because we really do. We need to bring it back to the people.
When you vote for more surveillance on the American people,
Yeah, yeah.
have you not read the Constitution? You swore an oath to it. And I don't care which one it is, either party. They're too busy trying to make money there for the next election.
Yeah.
The best way it happen is for people to realize if it's a popular name that is being endorsed by television, maybe you should rethink who you're voting for. Because all that money, they got to be beholden to some master.
Yes.
And the master should be the people.
Yeah. Well, I do know that many states, like for example, the drones, they're saying no drones on our soil. But of course, New Hampshire, I don't understand why we can't do that, other than, there's a lot of Democrats and a lot of Republicans that would vote against it. And I don't understand why they would vote, to allow, the military to fly drones over its people up here, where other states have said, no, you aren't doing that. Because, I'm getting messages all the time that our federal government is broken. So we need to enact new laws here to stop the federal government from coming on to its people here.
A wise man once said, if somebody said, there ought to be a law, that should quake in your boots.
Well, I agree.
Maybe one law, basically to sever our ties with the federal government, to basically say we will enforce no federal laws here. We are a sovereign people, the state of New Hampshire. Our laws are our laws. We will not enforce federal laws.
Yeah, I'd vote for that.
Take your bribe money, your federal sharing, take it and keep it.
Yeah.
We're free people.
Yeah.
We could solve so many problems, especially in education. When they first had the special education, the federal government promised they would pay us, 20, 30%.
Yeah.
They haven't even gone close to 10%. Yet they put all the mandates, all the burdens. And who pays for that? Our property taxpayers pay for that.
Yeah.
Where's the federal government? You want those programs implemented, you pay for it. I think school districts would be better, stop accepting that 10% and do it their own way for what's best for the children in that locality than going by federal rules.
Oh, absolutely. I've always supported that, John. We need to get rid of the Department of Ed. I know the newspaper quoted me one time for saying that, we should abolish it.
Of course we should.
Well, I thought I was going to get in trouble with the voters, but, they sent me up anyways. I think they said, yeah, we need to take care of that.
$110 billion, and how many kids do they educate at the Department of Education? None.
Yeah, not one kid. Yeah. Is it that much money? Oh my God, that's way too much. Now, historically, the New Hampshire legislature has gone out of its way to deny ballot access to the Libertarian Party, which, that is wrong how they do that. What do you think they are scared of, and what could your party realistically offer the citizens of New Hampshire if your candidate were widely elected into office across the state? It isn't the very notion of libertarian holding higher office. It's almost like a oxymoron, what they say.
I have many personal lawsuits all the way up to Supreme Court. It's funny. The state says there's a compelling reason that there shouldn't be three parties. A compelling state reason, really? Have they read even Article 11 of New Hampshire Constitution about the franchises of elections? I probably not. I was at a Supreme Court case, ballot access, where the state argued, and I could see the man afterwards, the state attorney general was visibly shaking afterwards because he had to argue the state's point. And he had to argue that the Iraqis, because our attorney made the statement, Iraqis just were liberated, had 130 parties on their ballot. And yet the state, how dare they call for a compelling state reason not to have three? Are you saying that the residents, the voters of New Hampshire, can't figure out three parties, but the Iraqi people can figure out 130 parties?
Wow, 130?
130, their first election.
Wow.
What does that tell us about the state opinion of the people in New Hampshire? They can't figure out past three. Now, when you run for state party, for a state rep,
Yep.
you only have to pay $2.
Yes. Yep.
Or the option of what, 5 signatures?
Oh, yeah, I think so, yes.
Yeah. As a libertarian, to do the same thing, I have to get 150 signatures to run as a state rep. Valid signatures. So you have to get in excess of that in case, well, for whatever reason, supervisor checklist chose not to accept any one of your signatures.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, as far as the legislature, I'm okay if they don't give us full party status because we're a small party, but get us on the ballot.
Yeah.
You know, when we are up to 20%, maybe then we can have a primary process. I can understand that. But to really make it so difficult, I think it's not fair. I think it's deliberately hijacking the principles of the founding of a republic. Think what happens to a voter when they're disenfranchised. Do they participate anymore? Do they say, oh, heck with it, and you know what? You can take your taxes. I'm not going to pay them anyhow. And so what are you going to do to me? You don't respect me. You don't respect my civil rights. Why should I even respect your silly little laws?
Yeah.
I'll start driving without a license. What are you going to do to me? Put me in jail? Okay, you're going to feed me. You're going to take care of me. If people start changing their mindsets like, the worst you can do is take care of me, well, then I'll stop doing this and you take care of me. What kind of society does that breed? When a man's right is not respected, where you make him jump hoops, how long do you think he's going to take that?
Yeah, not very long.
Okay, at that point, someday, there's a lot of libertarians that have actually dropped out of voting. They're waiting for the next shoe to drop. Is that the kind of society, is that the kind of country, is that the kind of state you want to live in? Where people no longer participate? They say, the hell with it, it's so corrupt. Look what has country, we have crony capitalism. That's not true capitalism. That's how you start fascism. That's how you start communism. Because you have people that know people. When a man's productivity is no longer rewarded but punished, when his life depends on what somebody with a little clout determines what his livelihood should be, that is a doomed society.
But how can we get them to come back and vote? Because really,
Make it count.
We can beat this.
Make it count. But here's the thing. The Supreme Court of New Hampshire said, your vote doesn't count. Well, I'm sorry, yours does because you're a candidate.
Yeah.
If you're at an election and you see the most egregious election violation, the RSA is very simple. Anybody aggrieved by the board or recount may petition the Superior Court. Anyone. Yet in a court case, Babiarz versus Town of Grafton, the court has said only the candidate has standing in court. So now I heard they were changing that to make sure anyone includes taxpayer. I think they've done that in the 2010 session. But at the time, this was 2005, 2006 time period. I was just stunned.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so we got to change the mindset that voting is, they say voting is a right. I think it's more than that. I think voting is a privilege to allow the state to exist.
Yes.
Because if you disenfranchise me, what do I care about your silly rules? A state is nothing but a political subdivision. Yeah. Just a boundary on a tree in the Connecticut River Valley doesn't care if it's on Vermont side or whatever. It's still a maple tree. A man is still a man on either side of the river. He still has rights. And you tell me because I vote a certain way or I believe in a certain thing that I'm less of a man?
Yeah.
There's something wrong with that thinking, and I think the legislature better start getting closer to their true roots.
Now, I know they're always saying that there's no fraud in voting. Except for I stand out here on the road with my sign on voting day, you know, at the high school here, and I saw more Massachusetts plates drive by. And I'm going, where am I? Am I in Goffstown, New Hampshire, or am I in Massachusetts? And I know they went in there and voted. I don't think they went in just say hi. And I mean, look at, who's the senator? Is it Martha Clark? She had the boarding house. And the vice president's niece, the U.S. vice president's niece, comes up here from wherever she's from, D.C. or wherever, and she votes here. And she had, I guess, 8 of them.
And did she pay the, because I'm sure she has a big trust fund, did she pay the interest and dividends tax?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
well,
you did or no?
I don't think she did.
isn't that a requirement as residency in New Hampshire?
Yes.
I know domicile and residency are two different things, but still.
Well, I want to know too is if the fire chief or whoever allows went over there to make sure that the smoke detectors and everything else. I mean, if she's running a boarding house.
Then it has to be wired smoke detectors and
Yeah.
certain exits and procedures, yes.
Yeah, yeah. It was just so funny when that came out. You know, there's a lot of egg on that face over there. But, you know, they're carrying on like nothing's wrong.
Of course.
Yeah. And I'm going, no, there's a lot wrong.
The audacity of lying. Oh, well.
Yeah, and how dare we point it out. That's what's really funny. Now, here's another really hot topic that's been in the newspaper a lot, John, and I did want to cover it before we ended. Recently, John DeVell, he's the chief of police up in Concord, he submitted a grant proposal to the Department of Homeland Security for the purpose of acquiring a Lincoln Bearcat G3, which is, you know, a lot of people just call it the Bearcat. It's one of those armored personnel carriers. In the grant, he stated that libertarian-leaning groups such as the Free State Project and homegrown anti-government groups propose a domestic terrorism threat in the community. You know, do you believe that this is the case? And, you know, how do you feel on that when he came out with that?
I'm a libertarian.
Yep.
One of the things that if you're a member of the Libertarian Party is you pledge not to use violence, that you will not initiate violence for political persuasion. Okay, I've done that. I'm trying to talk to people, get them to understand, to reason. If part of my joining the membership of the Libertarian Party is to pledge nonviolence for political persuasion, how does that make me dangerous?
Yeah.
I know Alabama and their training says, you know, if you're a veteran, if you're a libertarian, if you're a Ron Paul supporter, you're a terrorist. Really? Okay. Am I reading the news from the 1770s about Paul Revere and Sam Adams? They were terrorists.
Really?
They dared talk against the king.
Yeah.
That was treason to talk against the king.
Oh, you could have been killed.
You mean just like now with the current system? How many reporters have been killed so far? Oh, it was an accident, or you know, or sins of the father. That's an old Bible phrase, but now I guess if you're a 16-year-old American son of a terrorist, we could kill you too with drones, as long as you're in another country.
Yes.
When will it happen in this country? What is the line? Obviously, they don't respect the Constitution anymore. They don't respect the Fourth Amendment. So if they don't respect the Constitutional Fourth Amendment, I'm just waiting for them to prove it so that everybody else wakes up and sees truly we live in a police state. Libertarians been warning about this peacefully. We always have been. But don't take us for people being passive. We're passionate about liberty. But we will not fire the first shot, ever.
Yeah, nope.
Because it's against our nature.
Yeah.
Because we're reason. You don't reason at a point of a gun. There is no reason. There's no loyalty. There's no future. People warring against each other. Now, for the police to act like paramilitary, the problem goes back to the 60s there. We used to have a thing called peace officers. Today we have law enforcement. It's enforced the law. They use it to feed that machine called the court system to generate revenue. It used to be cops, you know, there's a fight, you break it up. If everybody could go home peacefully and everything, it's settled once and for all.
Yes.
Instead, they're both dragged into court. They're both ground into the system. The system is geared not for rehabilitation, not for being productive individuals. It's geared to maximize control over them. Ask somebody who's on parole. They have to see their parole officers between 9 and 5. How many employers got put up with that?
Yeah.
Some states have found a way around that so that they can always keep track of their parolees, so that they know they're working. They don't have to take time off from work. That employer that employs these people don't have to worry about them missing time. New Hampshire is slow on that. There are many other things. But to say, oh, of course, the other thing the Department of Homeland Security says, I'm a terrorist because I was a veteran. Is that how you treat people that served your country? You treat them as terrorists? Mr. Police Officer, give up your badge, resign, because you're supposed to be a peace officer, not a corporate stooge.
Exactly. I mean, just this a short time ago, up in Ware, he was a low-level drug dealer. Took a bullet in the head from a police officer in Ware.
Why?
Exactly. That's
Why? Look.
They could have put a roadblock up and
just
caught
wait.
him. That's it. They knew who he was.
They knew who he was. Just like David Koresh.
Yep.
They didn't have to have that raid. He went to breakfast every couple of days into town.
Yeah.
They could have had the sheriff even talk to him. He could have just picked him up right there.
Yep.
Why? Because they needed to show justification for their budget, to show they were powerful.
Yeah.
That's not our government. That's a terrorist organization doing that, using military weapons on civilians. Really? You have to do that?
Yeah. No.
Shame on you. Shame on you, Concord, for even listening to that clown. You should fire him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's no mercy. I'm not going to have any. That's not peaceful activity. That is preparing for war.
Yeah. And I don't understand why Keene, New Hampshire, and Manchester has one. Our local police department do not need these tanks, John.
They don't.
No, you nailed it right on the head. We gotta change the structure here. And another thing that we really need to do, and how do you do it, is there are a lot of good policemen that have good hearts. So I mean, I'm not saying that they're all with one brush, but how do we get somebody else other than the police to police themselves? Because aren't they the only organization that polices themselves?
No, the Bar Association. Come on.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about them. That could be another hour show.
No, I think we have to change the focus at the police academy for peace officers.
Yeah, we do.
That when they go back to peace officers, they'll be friends of people. Right now, don't call a cop because you get ground down into the court system, and a lot of people, can't afford that.
Yeah.
Okay? Libertarians are crazy enough. Okay, we know how to make it cost you. Look at the Robin Hood. You want to play with them. Keene is violating those people's civil rights. When they're going to realize in their heads they're going to be sued for millions after this is all said and done?
Yeah.
Because they violate those people's rights?
Yeah.
Just for what? Traffic revenue? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember an old friend of mine, Tony, we were sitting in Bristol, Vermont. That's where I grew up. And, we're shooting our BB guns down the hill. This is in the early 70s. Could be late 60s. And, we're shooting our BB guns. And, the house was way down the hill, John. There was no way we were hitting it. Next minute I know, there's Sealand Dearborn, the one police officer that was in the town. He comes out back of his mother's, Tony's house, and, what are you boys doing? We kind of jump, and we're just shooting our BB guns. Well, that's fine. But do you know you're hitting that window down there? And I mean, it was a long ways away. So he dragged us down there. We had to apologize, and then we had to go home and tell our mothers to pay for the window. And, we got in trouble for that. but it was all handled right there.
That's correct.
I don't have a criminal record, and hopefully the statute of limitations worn off, so nobody's going to come and get me today.
But today, now, you'd be arrested. Family would have to pay a lawyer for you. And,
oh, yeah.
I mean...
And guess what? I didn't shoot any windows after that. I said, okay, I
made
better
attempt.
well, that's it. I better make sure I know where my BB guns.
That's the difference between a peace officer and law enforcement.
Yeah, yeah. So it was just funny back then, how much difference it is today. But, we are getting toward the end, and, I just want to thank you for coming on, John. And if you have any closing arguments. Now, you are also the fire chief over in Grafton. I was going to point that out, and that's an all-volunteer fire department, right?
It's an all-volunteer,
Yeah,
probably one of the few left. I don't even get a stipend for doing the paperwork.
Oh, really? Yeah, over 70% of the U.S. is still volunteers in
That is
big
correct.
cities. And I'd love our fire department to lean more toward that, and I got a little pushback on it, but hopefully someday we can lean more toward.
Well, if times are tight and they can't raise any more revenue, they may need to go back to a combination or even to that.
Well, that's it, because Littleton, New Hampshire just did that.
Yeah.
They had a huge cut in their salary, in their budgets up there. you know, they were the next thing to bankrupt, and they said, look, we got to fix this, and they did. You know, they got rid of a few policemen that they didn't need and some firemen, and went back to more of a volunteer, and things are working fine for them. Yeah, it's surprising how it works.
Well, it's either that or you don't have coverage, so people will step up to the plate. And
Yes.
again, it goes back to what I said earlier. High taxes is the price we pay for uncivilized society.
Exactly, yeah. No, I'm for volunteer everything if we can do it.
If it's worth doing, somebody will find a way of doing it.
Yes, yeah. But I want to thank you again, John, for coming on. And
Thank you,
I really
John. Been a
appreciate
pleasure.
it. You know, we had a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll have you on again, because I think we could be talking for hours and hours.
We could on many subjects.
Yes, yeah. And again, this is John Burt, and I want to thank you for watching us today. And we had John Babiarz, and he's the 2014 candidate for governor in the New Hampshire Libertarian Party. And make sure you get out there and, you know, check all candidates, especially on the Libertarian side and the Republican side, as I say. You know, that's, you know, what we need. And until next time, I want to thank you for watching. Have a good day now. Bye.
Grampy made this.